Hello, welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Today's show revisits the burgeoning threat to human life in America, an organization called Planned Parenthood Federation of America. With the recent release of Planned Parenthood's 2011-2012 annual report, concomitant with their implementation of Obamacare, folks need to understand the enormity of its financial position and what it portends for America. Its profitability is staggering. Its balance sheet is the envy of any corporation in America, and yet supposedly Planned Parenthood is a nonprofit corporation. With the entrenchment of Obamacare, taxpayers will be shouldering an increasing burden of Planned Parenthood's revenues. Today's show examines Planned Parenthood from the perspective of American Life League, which is another important voice in the broad mosaic of the Right to Life movement. I confidently believe you'll find today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Well, welcome, Mr. James Sedlak.
Well, Brendan, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Mr. Sedlak, could you give your assessment of the most recent Planned Parenthood annual report that came out a week or two ago?
Absolutely. It's the, as you said, Planned Parenthood Federation of America annual report for 2011-2012. Its fiscal year runs from July 1st, 2011 through June 30th, 2012, and that is the period that is covered by the report. Just as the word Planned Parenthood Federation is actually made up of 72 different affiliates that operate all across the country, and Planned Parenthood once a year sums up the operations of all of those affiliates, including all of the financial data, and puts it together in one report and releases it. And what this report shows, the one that came out last week, is that in 2011-2012, Planned Parenthood had a total income of $1.2 billion. I'll repeat that again. That's $1.2 billion with a B dollars. Now, of that money, of the $1.2 billion that it spent, Planned Parenthood claims, and we have no reason to dispute it, that 45% of that money came from the American taxpayer. It says that it received $542.4 million in government reimbursements and contracts. And so you and I, the American taxpayer, gave Planned Parenthood Federation of America over $500 million last year to operate its trade. In fact, if we look back over the last 3 years, Planned Parenthood has taken in more than $1.5 billion in taxpayer money in just the last 3 years. So we are funding this organization. We are enabling this organization to do what it does.
Well, let me ask you then, I noticed they try to, and I've seen this out on the streets here in Boston, they try to say, well, only 3% of our services are abortion services. Could you comment regarding that? Do you feel that that's a deception that they are trying to pull the wool over on the general public?
Well, absolutely it is. When they use that 3% number, what they do is they count any service that they have provided to anybody, no matter how small. For example, if someone were to come in and to be given a condom, that counts as a service. If they're given 10 condoms, that counts as 10 services. If somebody comes in to buy a month's supply of birth control pills, that's a service. If they come in and buy 12 months' supply to last for a year, that's then counted as 12 services. So Planned Parenthood does everything it can to count every little thing so that the number of services go up. So when it comes to abortion, what Planned Parenthood said in this annual report is that in 1 year, in 2011, it committed 333,964 abortions.
Wow.
That's over 900 abortions a day, every day of the year, going on at Planned Parenthood. This is not minuscule business. This is not 3%. But if they take that 333,000 and compare it to some 10 million total services that they count up by counting all of these individual little things, that's how they come out with the 3% number. But it is totally inaccurate number. It is, somebody once said that figures don't lie, but liars figure. And this is a perfect example of that, of how they can use numbers to try to portray what they want. But we have to understand that 333,000 innocent human lives were taken at Planned Parenthood facilities last year. They charge about $500 for a first trimester abortion, and a lot of their abortions are second trimester, but they charge more for those. But even figuring the $500, we're showing that Planned Parenthood brought in about $150 million last year just from their abortion business. Wow. This is not a small business at Planned Parenthood. It is a very, very large business.
And when I look at the breakdown here of some of these services they provide, they list STD, or I think we once chatted about that. Planned Parenthood is now trying to call them STIs. Maybe you could differentiate what is an STI versus an STI. Testing and treatment, 4,475,000 services, supposedly.
Right. What they do, we used to call sexually transmitted diseases venereal diseases, and then they transformed the name into sexually transmitted diseases. But Planned Parenthood a number of years ago realized that being responsible for the spread of sexually transmitted diseases, because they are, is something that they gave themselves a black eye, and so they have been attempting to rename them as sexually transmitted infections, not diseases. They're talking about the same infections. They're talking about the same diseases that we've always talked about, but they want to call them infections because of infections are not viewed by the public as anything as serious as diseases are. If you have an infection, you take some antibiotics, you get rid of it. They want to portray it as something not all that important. But for people who study sexually transmitted diseases, they understand that diseases, women who have sex at an early age with multiple partners are more susceptible to many sexually transmitted diseases, including cervical cancer. Women who are on the birth control pill are more susceptible to sexually transmitted diseases because the birth control pill lowers the immune system of the body and also changes the acidity level of the cervical mucus to allow viruses to get into the body. The products that Planned Parenthood sells and the lifestyle that they push result in more and more sexually transmitted diseases, and that's why it is they do treat a large number of girls and women because of the fact that their products and their lifestyle lead to more of these diseases happening.
And I know that back in they list here that they on cancer screening and prevention for breast exams, of the 1.3 million supposedly cancer screenings and prevention for breast exams, 639,000 were for breast exams, and yet they really don't have any equipment other than to do a standard first in-office breast exam, do they?
That is absolutely correct. There's been a lot of focus on this. over the course of the last 2 years, since Planned Parenthood was claiming, even their president claimed that they did mammograms. The president of the United States has also claimed that Planned Parenthood does mammograms. But to do mammograms, you have to have special equipment and you have to be licensed to do it. And it has been confirmed now in every state in the nation that there is no Planned Parenthood anywhere that is licensed to do mammograms. And so they do not do mammograms. They refer to other places. And it was part of what the Susan G. Komen Foundation was upset about, is that they were giving money to Planned Parenthood, and then Planned Parenthood was referring the women to other places to get mammograms. And what Komen was saying is that they wanted to cut out that kind of funding, that they would rather give the money directly to the places that do mammograms, rather than have this third party in between. And of course, Planned Parenthood got upset about that. But they don't do mammograms. They do, as you said, the manual breast exams.
I see. And recently, I read something cursorily that Planned Parenthood wants to try to redefine or not use the word pro-choice. What word are they going to use?
Well, Planned Parenthood has come out in the last week and has said that they're going to drop the term pro-choice, probably because the polls of people in the United States have shown that very few people these days want to be known as pro-choice. They want to be known as pro-life. And so the percentage of people who are saying that they are pro-choice is continually falling. Planned Parenthood has said it's not going to replace pro-choice with any other name because they say that abortion is too complicated to be described by a single phrase, and they're just going to now discuss all of the complex issues surrounding abortion without giving any name to them.
Well, when I see some of the statistics in this report, for instance, when you walk into a Planned Parenthood facility, only 2,300 people were referred for adoption referrals versus the 333,964 that received abortions. What's going on here? Is that a level of deception also?
Well, we certainly think it is. I mean, this is consistent. This is nothing new. These percentages are nothing new for this year. It has always been the case that when Planned Parenthood has a pregnant woman come in, they're selling abortion. And this has been testified to by former Planned Parenthood employees like Abby Johnson and Sue Thayer, who have said that, yes, they've been ordered to sell abortions at their facility. And so, you know, it has been a continuous thing. Back in the 1990s, the government did a survey of all of the clinics that provided abortion in the country to try to determine if a pregnant woman went in, what percentage had abortions, and they found out that on average for most of the clinics in the country, that if a pregnant woman went in, about 18% of them had abortions, but they said at Planned Parenthood the average was more like 80% had abortions, just to show the kind of targeted counseling that goes on at Planned Parenthood to try to convince women to have abortions. And certainly our conversations with women coming out of Planned Parenthood have borne that out, that most of them say that they really felt pressured to have an abortion, and Planned Parenthood didn't seem to have much for them if they didn't want to have the abortion.
I see. And Planned Parenthood recently came out with a decree that it's my understanding that they have feeder operations that feed into a larger Planned Parenthood. And have they been directed, those feeder organizations, to provide abortions at those places also?
No. What has happened is, as I mentioned, Planned Parenthood has 72 affiliates around the country. And each affiliate operates a number of clinics. Some of them are small, some of them are large, but each affiliate operates a number of clinics. About 3 years ago, Planned Parenthood looked around and realized that they had about a dozen of these affiliates that did not offer abortion as a service, and by abortion we're talking about surgical abortion or medication abortion. About a dozen of these affiliates did not offer abortions, and were not doing surgical or medication abortions at any of their facilities. And so they issued an edict that said, as of January 2013, every affiliate had to have at least one clinic that did abortions. And so it doesn't mean that every clinic has to do abortions, but every affiliate must have one affiliate that or one clinic that does abortions. And we know of at least 3 affiliates that disassociated themselves from Planned Parenthood because they would not do abortions, specifically for that reason. And Planned Parenthood let them go because Planned Parenthood is so dedicated to abortion that they are enforcing the rule that every affiliate must have at least one location that does abortions.
Now, as far as surgical abortions versus medical abortions, could you explain to our public a little bit what medical abortions are, and are they on the rise, therefore decreasing surgical abortions, or what's going on in that realm?
Okay, yes. A surgical abortion is an abortion done, the easiest way to describe it is with an invasive procedure. And so anything that causes an abortion by invading the woman's body, whether it is with a piece of suction apparatus or whether it is a saline injection or any other matter that happens, that's a surgical abortion, and it usually is done, not in all states by doctors. The state of Vermont, for example, does not require that a doctor do a surgical abortion. So it's not always a doctor that does surgical abortions, but it's usually done in a room, with a woman on the table and a medical procedure happening. And that can be used pretty much at any time during the pregnancy. However, during the first 7 weeks of the pregnancy, another method can be used, which is called a medication abortion. The woman takes one of several kinds of pills. The most popular one is Mifeprex, and for those who have been involved in the pro-life movement for a long time, Mifeprex was originally known as RU-486, developed to kill babies in the womb. And a medication abortion happens after the baby implants in the womb, and up to 7 weeks later, the woman can take pills which will kill the baby and then take additional pills to cause the baby to be expelled from the womb. There is no surgical procedure in that if everything goes well. However, in a percentage of the cases, they find by an examination 2 weeks later that not everything has been expelled from the womb, and therefore surgical procedures are needed to get the rest of the baby's body out of the woman. But so that is the medical abortion. The medical abortion can be administered in just about all states under the direction of a doctor, but the doctor in some states does not need to be physically present in the room where the woman is. Because it does not require any surgical room, it does not require an operating table, etc. It is much easier to set up. And therefore, we find more and more Planned Parenthood locations introducing medication abortions or into their facilities. And so a lot of the affiliates who have now added abortions because of the Planned Parenthood dictate are adding these medication abortions, or as some people call them, medical abortions, so that they can adhere to the Planned Parenthood guidelines. And yes, the number of medication abortions does seem to be on the increase. Now, most states do require that medication abortions be reported like surgical abortions. And so the numbers of abortions being reported from those states that do have reporting for abortions, they will include both types. But your listeners should understand that there are a number of states, including New Hampshire and especially including California, where no reporting is necessary. And so any abortion can be performed, for example, in the entire state of California, and it's not reported to anyone.
Wow.
And so the numbers are not collected by any government agency. If you go to the Center for Disease Control and ask them how many abortions were committed in the United States last year, they will tell you the number is somewhere around 800,000, when we know the number is more closer to 1.2 million, but that's because they don't get reports from a number of places.
I see. Now, I was a finance major in college, and I noticed here their total assets on this report was $1,500,000,000, almost $18 million, liabilities of only $273 million, so that their net assets, or what we would call their equity section, has to be the envy of almost every corporation in America. They have $1,244,700,000 in net assets, and $474,500,000 is unrestricted. What do they mean by the word unrestricted?
Well, sometimes in many cases, they receive funding or they get a grant that is for a specific purpose. Somebody might give a grant that says, I'm going to give you $5 million to build a new building in whatever community. That's considered restricted funds because they can only use that to pay for the construction of that building in that community. Other people just give them money and just say, here's $5 million, go do what you want with it, and that's the unrestricted funds. And so the restricted funds are funds that they have been received that have been earmarked for a specific purpose and can only be used for that purpose. But it's still available to them. They just need to spend it on certain things. And in many cases, this is just bookkeeping. It's to make sure that they allocate enough of the funds for the building of that building to cover all of the donations that they've gotten for that.
And do they set aside, I know that they've been involved in what appears to be Medicaid fraud. Do they set aside funds for those potential liabilities of the Medicaid fraud? What is that?
I've never seen that in their financial statements, that they've set aside any of those kinds of funds. Planned Parenthood is all very interesting because they are totally self-insured. They have their own insurance companies, and they which are offshore. And they pay into their own insurance companies to get their insurance and stuff. So no, I've never seen them have that kind of a setup. But of course, when you have that much, billions of dollars in assets, and you have the ability to cover, a government that says, well, you underpaid us by $700,000. They say, okay, well, here's the $700,000 or whatever that is. The interesting thing, of course, is they make a profit every year. We've been tracking them every year since 1987, and there's not a single year that they haven't made it millions of dollars in profit. And they pay no income tax because they're a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, so they never have to pay any income tax on all the profits that they've made. And when we looked at the data for this report and compared it with previous data, what we're able to see is that over the last 40 years, Planned Parenthood has taken in over $6 billion in taxpayer money and has made $1.2 billion in profit. And that, of course, is reflected in the $1.5 billion that they have in assets. So they've reported $1.2 billion in profits, $6 billion in taxpayer money, which means essentially they've taken $1.2 billion of our money and put it in the bank.
Wow, that's something. Well, Jim, our time is up, and we thank you very much for coming on the show today. In closing, we hope you enjoyed another perspective from the broad mosaic of the Right to Life movement, and we hope you'll inform others about our show, Life Matters. We're confident that if people know the truth, they'll ultimately change their hearts and minds to pure love and kindness for the unborn, the sick and the infirm, the elderly, and all humanity. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.